Hello, all. So I'm kind of in a melancholy mood. So I decided to go over 10 mistakes that I made in life. And if you watch this, the idea behind doing this is so that maybe you can take my advice for whatever it's worth and avoid these 10 mistakes, especially if you're younger. Um, and you'll do better in life if you do. And I wouldn't consider myself a super wise person or anything, but I do think that um, there's some nuggets here that might be worth your time. So I'll try to go through it quick, be respectful of your time. For me, over and under exercising is a was a big mistake. The too long didn't read of that one or didn't watch is maintain a an exercise program throughout your entire life, but have it be sustainable, have it not be crazy, but just consistent. And to expand on that a little bit, when I was younger, I wouldn't consider myself like genetically an athlete. Like I've got or had in the past a little bit of athletic capability, but I was just a machine mentally back when I was young, which is funny because I'm anything but now. And I got to the point where I did athletics into a collegiate level and then beyond that to some extent. But here's the problem. I never really got paid for any of that. And I don't mean paid necessarily in money, but that's important too. But I mean, getting something out of it. I never got anything out of it. So I went into things very extreme. Like, I'll say this, people won't believe me, but I have witnesses. In high school, I used to do 1,000 sit-ups a night on the weeknights, and something like, I think at my height, I was doing 10 sets of 30 push-ups. I just every 5 minutes I'd do 100 sit-ups, flip over and do 30 push-ups. And what did it get me? Nothing. um, I used to jog a lot and all that, and I'm not saying doing any of that is bad, but what the problem is there's an issue where, like, say, an Olympic athlete who trains all his life for riding a bike in a race, he rides a bike in the race, and then this is a true thing. After this over, they can never get on a bike again. So you don't. It's because they've spent so much exercise time on something that it just becomes something that they want to avoid once it's over. Like, so the point is unless you're going to be in that top 1% of athletes, don't go crazy on exercise. But conversely, you want to stay fit. Like right now, I'm not fit and I'm really paying for it because I kind of hit that wall. I remember specifically when I moved out to Arizona the first time, I was up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. I was out doing my 3 mile jog. I was about to join a gym, looking for a place to get in with martial arts again, blah, blah, blah. And it just hit me. I'm going to use some guttural language here, so please forgive me. It's not getting me laid. My body was starting to hurt. Getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do all this stuff sucked. And it just hit me in this one moment. I remember it very specifically. I'm like, this sucks. And I quit. I stopped jogging. I just walked the rest of the way home. And that was it. I mean, I never really significantly from then had an exercise plan and kind of let myself go to crap. And you don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to have a consistent exercise plan that you're dedicated to, but it's not grievous. It just keeps you in kind of a baseline level of shape. And you want to do it through your whole life. That's my advice. And my mistake is I was too extreme in the beginning and too extreme being a couch potato. Um, and there was some other reasons why that was probably a little bit of mental illness and all that. Why? But don't do that. Have a consistent exercise plan that keeps you fit, but don't go so crazy with it that you're going to burn out on it long term. So, mistake one, advice one. Number two, listening to fools. Um, One of the things that's hitting me now in life is there's a lot of people who appear to be experts on things, and they're not. Like me, just some random dude on the internet. Should you be listening to me? Probably not. That's an easy one. But there's a lot of non-easy ones. There's people like pastors. There's people like ex quote experts in the field like of geopolitics and stuff, which I'm a little bit tuned in on, not as much as I used to be. But you listen to them and they've got great info that gets you hooked. Like Peter Zahn, I would say, is from a geopolitical point, guy spot on about demographics and stuff. But then he goes beyond that into all these other things where he's making predictions and he's getting it wrong almost every single time. So now I might listen to that guy every once in a while, but I don't consider him an expert beyond what his domain is, which is demographics. It's the same thing, people giving life advice and stuff. Do you want to take advice from somebody who's been divorced 3 or 4 times, who's gone through all sorts of relationships on what to do to maintain and get into a stable relationship? No, they might have some points because they've been through so much, they've made some mistakes. They might have even had a few good things, like they say, a broken clock and analog clocks right twice in a day. So yeah, they might have something to say, but the people you really want to focus on are the ones that have done it themselves. So again, being hypocritical here, I'm telling you my mistakes and hoping you avoid them. But if you really want to get somewhere in life, try to find people who've done it and focus on what they have to say versus some people who just proclaim themselves experts and might partially be an expert, but in reality, on the specific thing you're trying to achieve, they haven't done it. No matter how good they sound, no matter how much data they pump at you, ignore them. Number 3, this one's more of a religious one, but it's important, I think. Trying to pay for my own sins and letting sin just in general rule over me. One of the things, like I alluded to mental illness a little while ago, is I became a Christian when I was at a young age, but for whatever reason, I've just had trouble connecting with the large Christian community at large. And I used to think that was a big problem with me, and it is. Part of it, absolutely. But a lot of it is because they're fake, they're fronting, and they're phony. And again, going back to that listening to experts, I mistook what is an expert. You want to look at a good Christian life, look for the older people in a church who seem to be happy, who seem to be genuinely friendly or graceful and kind, that aren't getting into this whole, you're doing something wrong. We know about it, so we're going to confront you with it. But when you're not doing something wrong, but you're just floundering in life, they could care less about you. No, stay away from that. But what I would do is I would be highly critical of myself. I would fail, and then I just continually beat myself all the time up for failing. This is something that just now I'm starting to get out of. And what you're really trying to do when you beat yourself up for failing is you're trying to pay for your own sin. You can't. The only person who can pay for your sins is Jesus Christ, and he died on the cross. So when you mess up, you go to the cross, say, Jesus, I really screwed up. Please forgive me. I understand there's still going to be fallout for what I did. You'll forgive me of the sin, but the ramifications of that sin, like for me, when I was married, I was doing some sin and stuff, and it wasn't the only reason, but it's partially one of the reasons why my marriage failed. And sometimes I get beat up over that. And it's good to take lessons away from that. One of them was the exercise one, and then they could get into all sorts of stuff there. But you, by just flogging yourself, that's worldly sorrow. What does the Bible say? Worldly sorrow leads to death. Godly sorrow leads to repentance. What you want to do is you want to go to Jesus. Hey, forgive me. I know you've already forgiven me in an absolute sense when I became saved, but relationally to you, relationally to others, and relationally to other people, please forgive me, so this guilt doesn't bury in me, and then it gives a surface area for the devil to flog you, or myself to flog myself. You just got to say, okay, I'm going to try to do better. Please help me to do better, God. Please forgive me of the sin. Please strengthen me so if there's bad ramifications of what I did, I can get through them, and then let it go. And I think mentally you'll be a much healthier Christian person by doing that than just flogging yourself. Now, it doesn't mean that you should just go out and sin and then, oh, Jesus, forgive me, and then move on like nothing happened or you're good to go or whatever. But don't kill yourself over things that happen. There's nothing you can do about it. try to get forgiveness, maybe even with the parties involved, and then just move on and let it go, because it's just going to be a weight if you don't. And a surface area where your own mind or spiritual forces can just constantly beat on you. And it's sad to say, but I'm just now getting to that point where it's like, oh yeah, um, not allowing myself to have fun. Life is brutal in a lot of ways. It really is. And that brutality is going to come at moments. There's going to be people that are going to die. There's going to be people that disappoint you. You're going to disappoint yourself. There's going to be things that happen in the world that just rain crap over everybody. That's there. So the rest of the time, which is mostly all over here, you should be trying to have fun. You should, you know, live gracefully, not get as bitter about things. Like there was a period where I was really bitter, and it just radiated out of me. It didn't do me any favors in life at all. It didn't change the things that I was bitter about. One of the things that is involved in that is you got to realize there's micro things and macro things. You can be angry about the macro things, but you got to just let them go. Like you're angry about them, you wish they would change, maybe pray that they would change, but then just let them go, because in reality, you're a micro, you're not a macro. You're a little fish in a huge ocean, and very few of those little fish have an opportunity to really affect the larger ocean. So therefore, focusing all your time on this big ocean of stuff and ignoring the little things over here that you can actually affect and change is just a really bad strategy. Like in politics, if you're going to focus on it at all, you should be focusing on local elections, what's going on around you. And the world is constantly going to be talking about all the junk that's going on in the big ocean that you can do nothing about or very little about. And if you're challenged, then do the little thing you can and then let it go. Okay, I don't like what's going on in the world. I gave money to this cause. I volunteered some time to help out here. But beyond that, there's nothing I can do about it. So let it go and focus on the things that you can change, I guess. And in that, have fun. The whole don't let the weight of the world crush you. And there's a lot of try to bring levity and fun into things. It's like you got to go to work. Try to have fun while you're there. Even sometimes that's hard. I've been in jobs that I didn't like, and it's tough. But even in jobs that you don't like, you can kind of have this like sense of humor about it and just go, okay, this blows for everybody here. So I'm gonna do my job the best I can, but I'm not gonna take it too seriously. Like when somebody does something dumb or says something dumb, or there's a dumb meeting, I'm gonna make a sarcastic comment about it. I'm gonna not do it to be disruptive, but I'm gonna do it to take everybody's like edge off a little bit and hopefully make it more enjoyable for them, more enjoyable for you, and just people, rather than trying to get things out of people or put them in boxes and all that. Just say, hey, I'm going to just kind of enjoy this person as they are, not work on not trying to maneuver them around into my little world, and just say, okay, here's this person. I'm actually going to focus on them and just kind of try to have fun with them, because people come and go in your life, and have fun with the people while they're in your life, because they might not be there forever, right? Um, Another mistake I made is going to college too early. I'm very thankful for my parents, because I was a rich little boy. They paid for my school. I admire the people who had to work for it and did it themselves, because I think that just builds up a lot of character that translates into other things in their life that is all beneficial. But at the same time, I'm still glad I got to go. Going to college opened up a lot of doors for me. Just having that degree checkbox. I see people that sometimes don't have that, and it's more difficult. I don't think it ultimately holds people back, like especially in my field, technology, but at the same time, it makes it more difficult. So I'm grateful to have my degree. But at the same time, I wasn't ready to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do, other than when I was a little kid, my grandpa and my dad used to sit there and talk shop about politics, about the world, about what was going on. And I would like to have this really weird 50s tiki bamboo table thing. And I just crawl under that and I would just listen. And I just totally admired them for that, how they saw the world and how they could talk about its problems and how they had solutions and stuff. So the only thing I really ever wanted to do after I graduated from college or after I graduated from high school was get involved in politics somehow. So I had a political science degree. And at the same time, I took a lot of lower division computer science classes. I came like so close to becoming a statistical major. I wish I would have done that. And I think if I just would have put off college a little bit, maybe gone, did some military service like the rest of my family, since time immortal has, I didn't because I was sick of people yelling at me. I just would have perfected my character a little bit more so that when I went into college, I would have been more focused, and I still would have had that political science emphasis, but it would have been like more elective classes, and I probably would have become a stat major or a computer science major, both of which I was really close to doing. And I think in my career, even though I've been able to overcome not having that official background, it would have been better. So the takeaway from that is like, college is so expensive now anyway. So you got to do cost benefit analysis with different forms of education, college versus trade school versus this versus that, going right now, going later, going over a period of time. So I wouldn't, if you don't know what you're doing, try to figure out something that you like to do, but at the same time, don't go rushing into things that are going to kind of channel your life different directions when you're not fully ready. And that's the takeaway. Another thing that I did is I didn't really fully develop myself as much as I should. And with the rest of my life, I'm on the back half of my life now. I'm going to try to do that. Kind of in your second half of life, you get maybe a chance to redo that again. But when I was a kid, I could have developed some music skills. I could have developed some hobbies and stuff. There were things I like to do, but I just never really fully pushed on them. And I think that one of those qualities that defines like a great person from a good person, and just use those terms as kind of placeholders. I don't really view the world in that. But if you want to accelerate, pushing yourself on various fronts is a good thing, because you can find out more about yourself. You can develop talents that maybe even are secondary, that aren't really affecting your primary life, but just having those, you never know, and they can kind of open up little doors here and there. And also just enjoyment, like having fun, like doing more things that you like to do rather than just sitting there focusing on the stuff you don't. Mentally, health wise, it's a good thing. So push your talents, experiment. If there's something you like to do, take the time to actually explore that. I think is a good thing. Another thing that I really screwed up on is just poor time management. There's just It's easy to get stuck in a rut, and when you're in a rut, you don't manage your time as well as you could. I would always be trying to kind of maximize what you get out of a day. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a productivity checklist. It could be fun, but you try to be intentional. Oh, I hate that word, but yeah, it applies. Try to be intentional about how you spend your time, because in reality, that's the only real currency you have is time. You come into the world with just yourself, you're going to leave the world with just yourself. But everything in between them, the stuff you have and all that, it's cool, and to focus on that. But try to invest your time where you're going to get the most return. And I guess you define on what you allow to define what is good return for you. But try to spend your time wisely, try to be organized a little bit, try to kind of have a rough plan of what you're going to do every day, even try to have a plan of what you're going to accomplish later on. I don't, the Bible says, something along the lines where Jesus says, paraphrasing, that don't worry about tomorrow because today's got enough trouble of its own. So you don't want to be like uber too far focused because you got to here and now. You got to get through before you get over here. But at the same time, I do think it's helpful, and if it comes to my opinion or God's, always take God's, obviously. But it does talk about in other verses, having a plan, counting the cost before you do things, stuff like that. Maybe just kind of have general directions. Like I really like my uncle had a great saying. It's like you really only have one oar in the water. you know, it's like you're really not fully in control of your life. A lot of us think that we're in control, but in reality, we have control, but it's like a little sliver over here, and the stuff that we can't control is over here. I would like to do this, and this, but if there's no opportunity to do this and this, I'm not going to be doing this and this and this. But maybe I've got an opportunity to do this if I kind of organize and do things better. Plus, if you organize time better, you can just kind of go through, you learn what realistically you can accomplish, which is probably pretty little in reality per day. And you get more realistic about things and having a more realistic picture about things. And then it helps you prioritize things like, hey, I'm only going to be able to do X things today, but I can do at least one or two of them. Or if you don't manage your time well, you won't do any of them. So work on time management and prioritizing things that are important. I could have done a much better job of that. I think for American males, this is important, and just everybody is important. There's a lot of pressure on you to prioritize everything but your own interest, and while that's admirable, noble, and all that stuff, it's not sustainable. Like to me, you know, there's just been times in my life where I focused on everything except me. And I don't think you should become a narcissist and make yourself the focus of your life, because that's horrible. That's a horrible way to live. But at the same time, you have to have your own interests. Like here's some examples. I've stayed in jobs that I've been in because I felt an obligation to stay there. But at the same time, if that company, as a business decision, would have said, okay, from our perspective, it's better that this guy go, I would have been gone tomorrow. So you want to balance obligation versus self-interest. And I'm actually more, as I'm older, advocating that you worry about yourself more. Because in this world, God's going to worry about you. In fact, God, what he wants to do is kind of like say, hey, worry about my kingdom and I'll take care of your kingdom. Let's swap. And that's brilliant. You won't be able to do better than that. But sometimes practically working that out, you can get confused over what you should be obligated to and what you shouldn't. And especially if you're kind of in our society where you're trained to always be outward focused, a lot of times, like with relationships and things like that, you're supposed to put yourself last. I don't think that's healthy. It's counterintuitive, but I think you should actually put yourself a little bit more first. And specific examples of that and stuff, it's just you're going to be a better person if you're trying to work on you as well as saving the world, or being totally focused on what say you're in a marriage, what your wife or your family needs are, and not really, because ultimately you will somehow or another spend time on yourself. And if it's like just getting away from all this responsibilities and stuff and going to my little corner and gnawing on my piece of bread or whatever, versus saying, okay, hey, I need to go over here and work on something that's important for me. It's not up for debate. I'm going to do it. I'll work with you when I can do it, but it's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. I think it's important. Um, Final two. Um, I alluded to this before, but just not loving people with no agenda. Everybody in the world has an agenda. I would work on just trying to get to know people and being nice to them and not trying to get anything from them other than just getting to know them, like who they are, and appreciating for them for who they are. Because one of the things I'm finding in life is that people come and go. There's people that come into your life. Some people will stay maybe forever to some capacity. Their capacity in your life will be reduced very small, but they'll be a constant. Some of those people that you think will be that way drop right off the radar. And sometimes you'll do that to other people. Like I've failed in some friendships as well, and I regret that. But again, don't beat myself up about it. What's done is done. I've talked to some people about it. Um, but at the same time, I haven't that I need to do. But, just people are cool. And I think there's this underlying tone of hatred for everybody in our society. It's like, oh, they're this or they're that, so you should hate them. And I think that's not doing anybody a real good service. I mean, I get it in some ways, um, but people that aren't, most people, just try to get to know them and appreciate them, like the people in your life. Like, say, you know, there's people in your life that you think are going to be there forever. They're not going to be. They might only be there for a couple years. So during those couple years, try to enjoy them as much as you can and be thankful for them because one day they're going to be gone. Um, And then the last one I wrote is not balancing truth with context. I totally don't remember what I meant by that. But I think that has something to do with along the lines of not being distracted and managing your time. Maybe this is really kind of a non-point because I already covered it. But there's things to be mad about. There's people to listen to. There's greater problems than yourself that are out there. Um, don't put them in context of importance that they don't belong. There's stuff over here in the small level that's actually really important that you deal with. But if you're over here looking at these big things, you're going to maybe miss some effort and time that should be over in this quadrant instead of this quadrant. I guess that's kind of a consistent theme I'm saying. Um, decide what's important to you. For me as a Christian, you know, there's certain things that should have been really important to me all these years that just haven't been. And the things that are important to me, I went about totally the wrong way. You think you're not judgmental, you think you're not radiating that think you're superior. Maybe you just have to go through life a little bit more and fail a bunch of times to realize, okay, this person is really like me, just in different circumstances, and they're failing in ways that I would probably fail in or worse if I was in a similar circumstance. So my little goody two shoe self over here can look at that person and go, oh, you're blowing it, you're stupid, idiot, and all that stuff. But if you check that and say, okay, you failed a bunch of times over here. Imagine if you were over here where you got all these other temptations, all these other things going on. How brutally would you fail in a similar circumstance? And it allows you to kind of provide, grace to that person. Or again, people telling you what they think is important and that you should be little clones of them. And they're only showing you the tip of the iceberg of who they really are. And they might sound really good. And again, this is the false expert thing about what you should be doing and what you should, but then you find out later, it's like, if you try to do that, it's impossible. They're not really doing it. They're like this Pharisee type of person. And that's not what God's calling you to do. God might be calling you to do something different. So, yeah. So those are 10 mistakes that I think I went through. It says, there's no temptation that is taken you that is not common to man. So these things, if they happen to me, they're happening to some of you too. And I think that, maybe use this video just to do a little self-check if you listen to it or not. I hope it blesses you. Contact information will be somewhere. If you have any questions or need some prayer, I'd be happy to help you out. Other than that, I hope you have a good day.